when you talk about a miracle, that's usually understood to be something. In fact, the Hebrew word for a miracle is, one of the words is a nes. Nes means a flag. What's the connection between miracle and a flag? A miracle, so to speak, is a flag sticking out saying, hello, look over here. Hashem's running the world. We expect that Nisim, miracles, to be like the classic miracles of the Parshas of Yitzchak Mitzrayim, where nature is abrogated. Nature, the normal course of events, is turned on its head. So, what is a hidden miracle? Any ideas?
When Hashem hides himself through the force of nature.
It's when Hashem hides himself through the force of nature. Okay, but then why is that called a miracle? Why isn't that called nature? Why isn't that called minhag olam?
Something that happens that we don't know how it happens, but we see it.
Okay, that's a good starting point. I'm going to run through this Ramban here. Does everybody have one of these? This is a famous Ramban at the end of Parshas Bo. And it really describes what it is that a person should be taking out of the Seder. My Rebbe used to tell us we should read this Ramban every day for the last week or two before the Seder, because it really, when we get closer to Pesach, maybe we'll learn it inside. And we could learn it inside now, but I want to get to a excuse me. Okay, so this is on this the right-hand paragraph, page Reish Samach Ches. The Ramban starts off by saying, "Klal tam b'mitzvahs rabbos." I'm going to now give you, says the Ramban, a reason for many mitzvahs. I won't read the Hebrew, I'll just translate. You can follow along in the Hebrew inside if you like, as I'm translating. From the time that Avodas Gelilim, idol worship, entered into the world, which was in the days of Enosh. Now, Enosh was Adam HaRishon's grandson, so it's amazing that even, and he knew his grandfather, but even in those times, there started to take hold mistakes in ideas of emunah. Now, basically there were three groups of mistakes that were made. The most serious was that people denied, in essence, Chalila v'chas, that there's a God. Lohu, b'yomru lohu. So that was the most egregious of those mistakes. And then there was another group of people who didn't go that far, but basically they said, sorry, I missed out a point here. They said that the world has always been here. The two things go hand in hand. If the world has always been here, as the world is, it's called in Hebrew kadmon. It's been a steady state. There was no creation. There's no creation, there's no creator. So the idea of a steady state universe is, by definition, antithetical to the belief in a creator. They denied that the Hashem exists, and they said he doesn't exist. And of course that goes along with the belief that the world has always been here. It's not until quite recently that scientists allowed themselves the permission to believe in a creator, because science seems to point very strongly now to a Big Bang. If you remember, I think in 1966 in Holmdel in New Jersey, there's a whole famous story about how Penzias and Wilson, two scientists who were interested in using this Bell Labs, which was basically a communications satellite, to plumb the secrets of, as a radio telescope. And they found that there was this background hum that they couldn't get rid of. And they were very disappointed because this was interfering with their observations, and they couldn't figure what it was. They pointed it at New York City to find out if it was, radio interference. No, nothing wasn't coming from there. Was it an above ground nuclear explosion. That hadn't happened for a couple of years. They even cleaned out the pigeons and the droppings from the horn. They went so far, seriously. And in the end, they discovered that they were actually hearing a radio broadcast of the beginning of the universe. They were hearing a signal which was, I think, 2 or 3 degrees above absolute zero, and it was coming from everywhere in the sky. And this led them to the conclusion, which was accepted I believe, by science in general, that this was evidence of course, up to that point there were 2 conflicting theories. There was Fred Hoyle and his group who believed in a steady state, and this was the first conclusive empirical evidence of a Big Bang. We don't need empirical evidence because we have something much more than that. We stood at Sinai. We're the children of the children of the children of the children. I think I once told you I have a friend in England, a non-Jew, and he says to me, you know, I'm jealous of you. He says, you know the reason I'm a Christian? The reason I'm a Christian is about 1,000 years ago, a bunch of Normans stormed across the English Channel, and they managed to persuade my great-great-great-grandparents that believing in the founder of Christianity was infinitely better than bashing each other over the head and painting each other blue with woad. That's why I'm a Christian. He said, you're a Jew because you're the great-great-great-great-great-great of the people it actually happened to. And that's really what Pesach is all about. Maybe that's one of the reasons why it's called Passover, because that's what we pass over. That's why we believe what we believe. But for scientists, this was a very exciting event. Anyway, so that's the first mistake. The second mistake that was made by these people, again in the generation of Enosh, was that there was a God, but his idea, he couldn't know by definition what was going on in this world. The idea goes like this, that in English we would say, we know that God is both immanent, he's omnipresent, and he's also transcendent, he's beyond. So there was a group of people who didn't understand. They understood that probably the more easier concept to the human mind is that Hashem is transcendent. In fact, a lot of the the way we relate to Hashem is talking about Hashem is Bashamayim, he's there, he's Kodesh, 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 he's separate. That's one aspect, but there's another aspect of Hashem. Of course, all these are just interfaces, but Hashem Atzmusa has to be said, we can understand nothing whatsoever. But in terms of the way he wants us to understand him, he gives us a certain degree of understanding by his midot, the way he interfaces with his creation. So another way that we understand him is that he's immanent. Immanent means there's no place where he's not. Now, on the surface of things, ostensibly, these 2 ideas contradict one another. If he's totally removed, how can he be everywhere? And this brought a degree of kfira, not as I said, not as bad as the first one, but they believed there was a God, but he believed that he couldn't, by definition, know what was going on in this world because his transcendence precluded his immanence. He was so to speak, out there that it was, by definition, so removed that by definition he could not know what was going on in this world. That was the second stage. The third stage, the third in, let's say, ascending degrees of, or less degrees of less seriousness. The third and final mistake that was made, which was of a lighter nature, was that there was a God and he knew, but he didn't care. Meaning, he created the world and he left us like the fish. As the Ramban says, like Kidgei Hayam, She'en Mem Hashgacha. They don't have any supervision. Now, of course, if Hashem wants to perform something in his world which would require Hashgacha, supervision, on a specific fish, for example, the story of Jonah, so then that specific fish would come under the purview of Hashgacha Pratit, specific supervision. But in general, each single fish does not have hashgacha. A certain genus, a certain species, as a klal would have hashgacha, but not specific hashgacha. And that's what they believed that was the story with man. There's no such thing as hashgacha pratit, which of course also means that there's no such thing as a relationship. That Hashem, in their mind, was not interested in man, in each individual person. And so Hashem, to put paid to these three mistaken ideas, brought forth the great plagues in Egypt. And he did this in order, as he says here, by changing the conduct of the world, v'tivo and its nature, it will become clear to all, the nullification of all these mistaken ideas, because an unnatural miracle, and we haven't got to hidden miracles yet, these are open miracles, of course, teaches that there is one, yesh la'olam eloka mechad shoy, there is a God who created it, ex nihilo, and he knows, and he supervises, meaning he wants a relationship with man, and he brings in the fourth thing now, says the Ramban, v'yochel, and the paragraph that starts v'ata. And when this miracle will be pre-announced, it will show to everybody the truth of something called prophecy. A fifth thing now he's talking about, because on prophecy rests the whole Torah. Because it was necessary for the Jewish people to know that God speaks to his chosen ones, his favored prophets, and tells them what he's about to do. Because if we didn't see that demonstrated by the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu announced prior to the miracles happening, if we didn't know that such a thing existed, then of course it would be difficult for the Jewish people to believe what Moshe said, which is that he went up and this is the Torah that Hashem told him, dictated to him to put down, because who says that God speaks to man? Therefore, in order to prove that such a thing happens, all of these miracles were pre-announced. And so these miracles, once and forever, showed that Hashem created the world ex nihilo, and he knows, and he cares, and he can, Yochel, he's omnipotent, nothing holds back his hand from doing what he wants, and the truth of Nevuah, of prophecy. Now, I had a problem for many years that I never understood, maybe you can help me here, that how does the fact that a miracle, which is essentially a shinui, a change of nature, how does that prove that God created nature? I mean, let's give a rather simplistic parable, a mashal. If I take my car over to Sheikh Jarrah over here, which is probably not a very good idea, to get it fixed by one of the Arabs, I mean, does that mean that same Arab can build a car? So how does it prove, how does God changing nature, altering nature, prove that he created it? Any ideas?
The first three words of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim. So there's no bigger proof than that, right? Like Hashem created it.
But that means you have to believe that's true. I mean, these were supposed to be, testament as witnesses, proofs. The miracles themselves that everybody saw in Mitzrayim. You're an Egyptian, you're in Egypt, and this is going to prove to you, and to the Jewish people, more importantly, that there's a God who created the world ex nihilo. Why? Because he changed Teva.
Because he's doing it through physicality. Physicality usually goes through the way of nature. He's making physicality operate not through the way it usually does. That, I guess, kind of proves that he's the one in control.
But again, I mean, you come back to Ahmed down in Sheikh Jarrah. You know, maybe Ahmed can fix the car, maybe he can patchkey around with it, but who's to say that he can build a car from...
He could only fix it through ways of nature. God could do it through ways that aren't natural.
Okay, but I'm saying you can't ask a kasha on a marshal. You understand the marshal? It's the parable. So, no, what do you say, Ron? Okay. It's late in the day. It's 9 o'clock already, I understand. Yeah, please. What's your name?
Danny Hill.
Shalom.
I think it's perhaps a non-question because I don't think the Nisim do prove the existence of God. There's always a way for skeptical people to say it's something else's nature itself.
Okay, granted, but the Ramban says that these miracles were supposed to at least demonstrate, if not irrefutably, but demonstrate that God created the world out of nothing, and all we seem to be happening is a shinui of teva, a change in nature, but not from letter aleph, from the beginning, from the ground up. I'm not saying that you couldn't challenge that the miracles were, but granted they were miraculous. Let's say that. Naniach, that everybody understood they were miraculous. And I don't think that there was any doubt in the mind of the Egyptians, certainly by the end, or anybody who was around at the time, that they were miraculous. It's not now we're sort of historians sitting in the comfort of our armchairs with our pipes looking at events that happened to that. This happened to these people, and I don't think anybody says that, from our account anyway, that nobody there at the time doubted that they were miraculous. But again, so I asked, this question bothered me for a long time. And the answer really is really quite straightforward. There are only two possibilities. Maybe there's a third one, you can tell me, but it seems to me there's only two possibilities. There's either the fact, as we said before, the world is as a steady state. It's always been here, it always will be here, and in which case, change is incapable. It can't change. Nothing can really change. Nothing can change. Whatever is fixed in the physical world will go on like that. Because why? Because it's always been here. If things have always been here and they always will be here, then there's no such thing as ex nihilo, a creation out of nothing. So then nothing, by definition, can change right now. So the fact that Hashem changed nature proves that one of our two options cannot be. The option of a steady state, of a universe which has always been here and always will be here, and therefore, by definition, cannot change. The mere fact of change proved that at some point there must have been a beginning, because the only other alternative that I'm aware of is that there was no beginning. So if there's no beginning, then the whole possibility of change is impossible. Yeah? Okay. So, Baruch Hashem, after 25 odd years, I finally, somebody, Rabbi Yaakov Elituv, gave me that answer, which made me very happy. Okay, let's move on. Now, then he brings psukim, and then he brings an understanding of why it is that Hashem, maybe we'll tell our story. I think maybe some of you heard it before, but I think it's a good story. There's a question that rabbis are asked quite a lot of the time, and it goes like this. Okay, Rabbi, very nice. The Egyptians, the children of Israel, they had all these plagues, and that's why they believed in God. But very nice. So, so if God wants me to believe in Him, so why doesn't He do a few miracles? I'll believe in Him. I have no problem. So why? That's basically what he says. The next top of the next paragraph. So I have a mashal which is somewhat modified from Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. I believe the original idea was Yisrael Salanta's. My mashal goes like this. Once upon a time there was a young prodigy, a young girl at the age of 8, could play Rachmaninoff better than the best. Now, right? Rachmaninoff's not easy to play, right? No. Very not easy to play. And this girl was just unbelievable. Like, nobody could believe. And she was this English schoolgirl, very. So the parents were in a bit of a quandary what to do, because on the one hand they didn't want her to turn into a circus freak, On the other hand, they felt that her talent was so extraordinary that to completely hide it from the world was not fair. So they came up with a solution. The solution was as follows: that they rented the Albert Hall in London, one of the big concert venues there, and they invited the entire world media to be there at this once and once only concert. And in order that the concert wouldn't be, forgotten, they had these souvenirs. They had a tiara with black and white keys on it. They had a bracelet, the grand piano, a gold grand piano hanging from it. These were all given out. And anyway, she gave the concert, and everybody just was completely blown away. And she went back to being a normal schoolgirl. So about 2 months later, these, I don't know what you call them in America, but in England we call them yobbos. Like, people who talk like that. These kind of,
Cool.
no, not cool, sort of like low lifes.
Oh, okay.
So they turn up at the door, they knock on the door, and the father of the girl opens the door, and they say to the father, yeah, like we heard like your daughter is like a really good piano player, but we don't believe that she's half as good as she's cracked up to be, unless she comes down here now, right now, in the sitting room, and gives us a concert on your Steinway grand piano. So what do you say to these guys? On your bike. She's not going to jump through hoops for every Tom, Dick and Harry who decides that he doesn't believe that she's as good as she said. And that's us, that's the Jewish people. We were there at the concert. We know, we were there at Har Sinai. And we've got our souvenirs, which we preserve to this day. We have our tiara. We have our gold grand piano, our tefillin, to remind us constantly that this actually happened. And Hashem is not going to jump through hoops in every generation for every atheist just to prove he exists. This is what, he doesn't actually say quite like that. This is basically what Rabbi Israel Salanter says, a slightly different parable, slightly different, set in Russia, of course, on this idea. Okay, that's parenthetical. Now, and that's the Ramban says, therefore, why that we've got lots of mitzvahs, and we all talk about Yitzias Mitzrayim, because this is essential that we should internalize this and know this and remember it and pass it over to our children, because that's the foundation of our belief and our emunah in Hashem. Now we get to the hidden miracles. Umina nisim hagadolim hamufursamim. Says the Ramban, and from these great open miracles, Odom moide, a person comes to admit, benisim hanistorim, in hidden miracles, shehem yesoid haTorah kula, which are the foundation of the entire world. Now, what are hidden miracles? Come to the point. Let's put, we can actually go back, if you've got, open up your Chumashim. This week's Parsha. Vayadaber Elokim el Moshe v'yomer elov ani Hashem. I am Hashem. V'eira, and I appeared, El Avraham, El Yitzchak, Vel Yaakov, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, B'keil Shad Kai, through my midah, through my interface of the name Keil Shad Kai. Now, Shad Kai, Ushmi Hashem, Lo Nodati Lahem, my name of Hashem, the Shem Mefurash, the Shem Shebe'etzem of Hashem, I did not make known to them. Meaning that the conduct that, and we're going to see now in this Ramban here, which I gave you, the word Shad Kai, the Ramban says one of its meanings is Shoded. As he says, Shoded Ma'arachot, that Hashem, so to speak, steals constellations, as we saw by Avram Avinu, that Hashem said to Avram Avinu, he took him out and he showed him his horoscope, or rather, Avram said to Hashem, says, you're going to be the father of this great people, the Jewish people, and he says, I can't. I'm barren. I see in my astrology. I look in the stars. And Hashem was Shoded Ma'arachos. Hashem literally moved around the constellations. Now, what does this do? Okay, so we need a little bit of a parenthesis here. There is some truth to astrology. The Jewish people are, they say, Ein Mazal Yisrael, which is sometimes mistranslated to mean the Jews have no luck. what it means is the Jews are above luck. The Jews beat to a different drum, march to a different drum. We have what's called, as we spoke about before, hashgacha pratit, but the general running of the world comes down from the highest places through a chain of command, through all of the olamas elyonim, higher worlds, down, through myriads of worlds, until the last stop on the line, so to speak, before it enters this world are the mazalot, are the stars and the constellations. And therefore, a person, if he has, theoretically, could see things in the stars. We're enjoined not to look into the stars, not to make prognostications. But it could be certainly for a non-Jew that the stars could reveal something. Being as it may, that Hashem, as we say over here, was Keil Shadkai. He rearranged Avram Avinu's horoscope in such a manner that he would be fertile and he would be the progenitor of great nations. A hidden miracle is basically when Hashem takes a person's mazal. The word mazal comes from the word to flow, nezila. It's a flow, it's a hashba'ah that comes down to this world. Really, according to somebody's mazal, let's take, for example, Beryl. Beryl is a big tzaddik. Beryl never speaks a word of Lashon Hara in his life. Beryl is universally loved by everybody. Beryl gives huge amounts of tzedakah every year to charity. Beryl is always the first person in shul and the last person out. Beryl never wastes a moment. He's not mevatel zman. He sits, he learns bahasmoda. Now, if you looked at Beryl's horoscope, his mazal, you would see that what was predestined for him in the stars was that Beryl would pass away at the age of 75 in a car crash. Baruch Dayanemes. So, and yet, because Beryl was such a tzaddik, Hashem rearranged his mazal that he went on to live to 90 and he dies in his bed. Now, was that a miracle? Does it look like a miracle? Doesn't look like a miracle. People live to 95, 97, 100, much older than that. But if you could see behind the scenes, you would see that because that Beryl was such a tzaddik, that Hashem, so to speak, behind the paragod, behind the curtain, rearranged things in such a manner that the hashpah would finally come down into this world in such a way that he would be given an extra 15 years of life because he was such a tzaddik. A big tzaddik, right? His wife lights 19 candles every Friday night. Let's take Shmerel. Shmerel, nobody likes Shmerel. Shmerel never has a good word to say about anybody. Shmerel spends his entire time putting people down. His mouth is like a running sewer. He doesn't know what tzedakah is. Once upon a time he put on tefillin. He's a regular customer at the drive-in Big Mac. Shmerel does averas bisnacht af morgen. He passes at the age of 75. So was there something miraculous about his death? God killed him. Because if you looked in his mazal, you'd have seen that he was supposed to move on to the ripe old age of 95. But Hashem took 20 years off his life. Meaning, and that's what the Ramban says is very important, that from these nisim hagadolim hamufursamim, these great open miracles, a person comes to understand that everything in his life is miraculous. And there's no such thing as far as Jews are concerned anyway, minaga olam, the way of the world, and teva. Now this is actually a machlokas between the Ramban and the Rambam, but the Ramban believes that everything that happens to us, for the good or the better, is actually as a result of something that we do here in this world. We're either being rewarded or punished here in this world. And this is a big chiddush. And we wouldn't know that were it not from the fact that we see that Hashem can change nature. Now, Okay, there's a slight problem here I'll come back to later. But basically that's what, if you pick up maybe we'll do this inside this one, this Ramban here. This is the Nun Ches, this is on the Parsha of the week. Now what I'll do is I'll read the two of Yerushalayim, that's below the line, because it's a little it's easier to understand. So talking about this name Keil Shad Kai, you see it, it's the second paragraph. For Kavonas HaPosuk, Shahashem Nir La'avois B'Shem Keil Shad Kai, and the understanding of the verse where it says that Hashem appeared to the forefathers as Keil Shad Kai, Asher Boy Hu Menatzech Es HaMarachos HaShemayim, that he, so to speak, he defeats or he conquers or he. In another place he says Shoded. He's like a pirate, so to speak, almost, that he steals, he rearranges the heavenly constellations. Ubo, and in that, by doing this, Asa lehem nisim gedolim, he makes to them great miracles, shelo hisbatel behem minhag ha'olam, without nullifying or cancelling the way of the world. Unlike, of course, Mitzrayim. In other words, as he goes on to say, Dahainu, that is, Barav, Pada Osam Mimoves, in the time of famine, he redeemed them from death. Umil Milchoma, and in war, Midei Chorev, from the hand of the sword. V'noselehem Oishe v'chovod v'chol tuv, and he gave to them riches and honor and all good. Kamol Kol Yehudei Habrachos v'Haklolos Shebetorah, as is the case with all of the brachos and the klolos. He's referring later on the brachos and the klolos in the Torah and Parshas in Sefer Devarim. Shaharei Kol Tuva. Here we go. This is the point. Shaharei Kol Tuva Habala Adam. Any good, all good that comes to a person, B'schar mitzvah, is coming to him for the reward for a mitzvah. V'chol ra, and anything that bad happens to a person, haba olav, ba'oinash aveira, as a punishment for his aveiras, barak al yedei ma'asanes. Now, in order to do this, it has to come through something miraculous. Why? Ki iulo haya ha'adam natun bidei tivo. Were a man left in the hands of his teva, meaning his mazal, mazalo, he says it, Lo hoyu masov mosifim o guruim mimenu mu'urna. His actions would affect him, his status in this world, not one jot. In other words, a person has a mazal, it's a script, it's going to be played out, and that's that. And what he does in this world really should not affect him at all. Kach shekol haschar va'oinish shel haTorah ba'olam hazeh. Kulam nisim. Therefore, all rewards in the Torah promises for a person in this world are all miraculous. This, gentleman, is a hidden miracle. Now, it's interesting. If you look at the Torah B'Shpal Peh, you will find absolutely zero beferish explicitly stated for the reward for doing mitzvahs. Nothing. It doesn't say you're going to go to Olam Haba. It doesn't say anything about Olam Haba at all. It says all about what? Olam Hazeh. If you keep the Torah, you'll have Yorel Malkosh. You won't have bandits. You'll have plentiful crops. All Olam Hazeh. Why? And this is the answer. Because Schar va'oinish in Olam Hazeh is a huge chiddush. Unless the Torah had told us that we were going to get rewarded and punished, Chalila, in this world, then the default position would be no. Why should true, when a person goes to Olam Haba, he'll receive the reward for his spiritual action in a spiritual place. That's logical. Person does a mitzvah. Mitzvah is a ruchnis dechazach. It's a spiritual thing. So where will he get a reward for that? In a spiritual place, in the Olam Haba. But to be rewarded for something spiritual in this world is counterintuitive. Not only is it counterintuitive, it's such a chiddush. That's why the Torah has to go into great detail about the rewards and punishments for our actions, our mitzvahs, and ma'asim tovim, and chalil the reverse, in Olam Hazeh, because that is counterintuitive. It's something which we would not have expected. Why? Because, seeing as we all have a mazal, we would assume that mazal gets played out, and it's impossible, so to speak. And it is impossible to change what's going to happen to us without what? A hidden miracle. This, gentlemen, is what a hidden miracle is. That Hashem can, does, will, and the Ramban says it very stark. And if a person doesn't believe in this, then he has no chelik in Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. Unless we believe that everything that happens to us, for the good or the better, are miraculous events based on our actions in this world. Let's just finish off. So, as we said, Ki ilo haya ha'adam natun bidei tivo umazolo, where a person left in the hands of his teva, doesn't mean his nature. It means like in his predestined existence, his mazal. It shouldn't be that his actions would add or detract one at all from what he does here. Why? Because he's on this automatic pilot. Thus, all of the schar and the punishment of the Torah in this world are all miraculous. But they are nisim nistarim. They are hidden miracles. Beryl getting his 20 extra years of life is a miracle. Shmerel losing 20 years of his life is a miracle. Why? Ki haroim oisam. Because people who see these things happening, choshvim shehu min hagash olam. They see it as just the way the world goes around. Achla amito shel davar. But truth be known, heim schar va'onish la'odam. These are rewards and punishments for a person. Umitam zeh, because of this, haTorah ma'aricha goes into great detail. Bi'udei haschar va'onish ba'olam hazeh, in the apportioning of, excuse me, reward and punishment in this world. Ve'einu maskira es yeudei haschar va'onish shel haneshama ba'olam haneshamos, and it doesn't even mention the reward and punishment of the neshama in the world of the neshamas. Why? Because schar va'onish ha'olam hazeh heim movsim bilti tivi'im. Because reward and punishment in this world are wonders which are completely supernatural. Aval nitzchios haneshama, but the eternity of the soul, ve'hidbaka belokim, and it's cleaving to God. Hu davar tivi. This is something, as I said before, natural in the sense that when a person goes to a spiritual place, then the spiritual actions that he did will become revealed. Shehi shabo el alokim asher natna, that when he will return to God who gave him that neshama. Okay, there's one problem which is left over, which is, and again this is something that bothered me for many years, and I don't have a completely good answer. The Ramban says, and let's look at inside. If you go back to the this one, first page you had. That's it. If you look there, right on the last paragraph, I'll read you this. It's very, very famous Ramban. Umina nisim hagadolim hafusarim adam moide. I read this already. Benisim hanistarim shehem yisoid haTorah kula. And from the great miracles, mefursamim, great public miracles, Adam, a person, modeh, admits, benisim hanistarim, two hidden miracles, as we've been talking about. Shehem Yesoid HaTorah Kula, because they are the foundation of the entire Torah. She'ein la'odam chelek b'Torahs Moshe Rabbeinu, that a person has no portion in the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, ad shenamin, until we believe, b'kol devareinu, in all our things, everything, umikreinu, everything that happens to us, shekulam nisim, they're all miraculous. Ein behem teva, there's nothing natural about them, umin hago shalolam, nothing about the way of the world at all. Bein barabim, bein biyachid, whether they are public or individual. Ella im yaseh hamitzvos, if a person does the mitzvos, yetzlichenu scharo, they will award him his reward in this world. Vim yavo aleim, and if he transgresses the mitzvos, yachrisenu ansho. They will cut for him literally his punishment. Hakol b'gezeres elyon, all through a how do you say, a decree from on high, etc., etc.
Wait.
That's basically what I wanted to say. What bothers me and has to be understood is how is it that a person, maybe I could say maybe not, and in fact I think this is what the Rambam says, that, and true, that Hashem, how do you see from great open miracles that Hashem is conducting the world by hidden miracles? Why are great open miracles a proof to hidden miracles? Why is that a proof? That's what he says. A person admits. What do you say, guys? So I think I have someone, Rabbi Elituv again, actually. It's not so posh, but if you look, this is the Droshes Torah of the Ramban Hashem Tamima. I'm not sure, but he says, if you turn to page 11, I thought I'd get through more of this, but okay. Now, he really, we should have done this in context, but he talks about the mitzvahs, he speaks about the Ten Commandments, he speaks about very, very similar. This is very, very similar what he says here to what he says here in this in the Ramban at the end of Parshas Bo. But, and the crucial point, he says it slightly differently. This is on Nun Ches, it's the second paragraph. Listen to what he says here. Umin ha-mitzvos ha'ele v'hasmoda bohem, through these mitzvahs, and the person, hasmada, I don't know how you translate well in English. Hatmada means like tamid, him constantly doing them. By a continual performance of these mitzvahs, sha'odam makir mehem, that a person recognized by his hasmada in doing mitzvahs, umoda behem ala nisim hamufursamim, and he comes to understand, Umina mitzvahs ha'ela hasmoda behem, she'odem makir behem, umoda behem al hanisim hamuforsim. Hamorim ala chidush v'ha'yedia v'hashkachas Hashem. So I think I'm going to change my mind. He's saying here. He's saying that it's a mitzvah, as we know. What are the mitzvahs of tzitzis, zeichel tzitzis Mitzrayim, of Shabbos, zeichel tzitzis Mitzrayim, of Pesach, of Sukkot, so many mitzvahs, zeicher le'yitzias Mitzrayim, that what by doing these mitzvahs we inculcate into us the veracity, the fact that these great public miracles happened, which demonstrated the fact that Hashem created the world ex nihilo, that his transcendence doesn't preclude his immanence, that he knows what's going on, and that he cares. There's hashgacha. These are the Gimel Yesodos HaTorah, the three foundations of the Torah, Shehizkarnu, which we mentioned. Mehem, from them, from these great open miracles, but not just from the great open miracles, but us doing the mitzvahs connected with the inculcation into ourselves of the veracity of these great open miracles, mehem odom modeh ala nisim hanistarim, havayim tamid, which are happening to constantly. It seems to me that what he's saying here, you see, it's pretty much the same, but he has an important point. How does a person get to be modeh on the fact that everything that happens to him is a nes nista? Is by his hasmoda and his iyun, I would add, his being constantly connected, especially when he's doing these mitzvahs, to think of Yitzias Mitzrayim. When I put on my tefillin, when I keep Shabbos, Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. To strengthen within myself the knowledge, the veracity, the truth of our Messiah, that these miracles happened and that they were completely miraculous and they were public, And by doing that, by doing these mitzvahs which are connected with Zeichen Tzitz Mitzrayim, somehow on a way which is not logical. It's not a person makes a logical bridge. And that was my kasha. Who's to say? It's not logical. It's that he does something inside himself which will cause him to believe in Nisim Nistarim, in hidden miracles. Ad kan. Questions? Please.
So the miracles are only hidden from our perspective, of course, not God's. But even from our perspective, since they're hidden, we don't know anything about them happening.
Correct.
And that's not really the question. And the question is, Shmerel and Beryl, why don't we just say that's Hashem exercising Din and Rachamim? Why refer to them to the expanded, enhanced life span of the opposite as
Because, it could be that, Din and Rachamim, Din is, it could be that that Shmerel invoked upon himself the Midas Adin, but the point is that because there is this track called Hidden Miracles, that Hashem can, will, and does alter what happens to a person in this world. And that's not something, that's his point. That's something which is counterintuitive. Because there's a thing called a mazal, because there's a thing called a predestination, that a person has his life, so to speak, set out in front of him, one would think that one's actions in this world wouldn't change that. Why should they? The miracles of Mitzrayim, when a person is ma'ayin into them, a person comes to their hodah, that no, everything I'm doing will result in reward or punishment, also in this world.
So that's the hidden miracle.
That is the hidden miracle.
I can alter what happens in my life.
Yes, to a certain extent. But not only that, he says something very strong. He says that a person has no chelik in the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu until he believes this. It's very stark. A Jew has to believe, according to the Ramban, that everything that's happening to him, for the good or the not so good, is because of his actions. You look at this paragraph carefully. He's very, very stark the way he says it. He says that a person, I'll read it again. Ein bahem, that there's nothing. She'ein la'odam chelik b'Torahs Moshe Rabbeinu ad shenayim b'chol devareinu mikreinu shekulam nisim. Ein bahem teva min agol shalom. Bein b'devarim, bein b'rabim, bein b'yochid. Ela im yaseh ha-mitzvahs yatzlichenu scharo ve'im yavo aleihem yachrisenu onsho. Hakol b'gezeres elyon. That's really an extremely strong statement.